Hi there, and welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. This is another episode of Behind the Sessions, and I am your host, Dr. Kat. Today, I want to talk about this notion of not doing enough. This is something I hear all of the time, uh, every week, for sure. It comes up that the moms who are coming in for therapy feel like they're not doing anything or not doing enough. And what I mean by that is that whatever list that they have um, of whatever's on their personal to-do list, home to-do list, house to-do list, work, whatever is um, on their plate, on their load of things to do, there's a sense of not being ever able to accomplish what is on the list, do all of those things. And once I start to dig a little deeper, well, for one, usually the list of things that they have to do is incredibly long. Two, the list never ends, meaning it's perpetually being added to. And three, most people have fully discounted the things that they are doing, and kind of taken out of context the quote unquote reasons why they might not be able to accomplish the things that are on their actual to do list, like the things they have written down to do. So, what happens is that when you become a parent, your to do list, if you want to put it in those terms, doubles, triples, quadruples, I don't know to what factor it increases for each person, but there is so much more to do. But very slowly over time, people begin to not recognize the amount of work that they're doing anymore, especially when it comes to day to day tasks. There's the, feeding of the kid or kids, there's housework, there's managing doctor's appointments, there's taking care of, getting from point A to point B. There might be things that you're supporting your spouse with or that they're supporting their spouse with. And I want to say here that for some people, the spouse or partner, husband is also doing a lot of stuff. But I'm not really talking about that right now. Certainly, there are plenty of households where the spouse, partner, whoever is not helping very much. So I'm just going to like suspend that for now. I'm not talking about what the spouse is or isn't doing, or partner is or isn't doing. I'm just kind of talking about what is on the mind of the mom who's coming in to therapy. Usually, when people are coming for therapy, they're also dealing with depression or anxiety or PTSD, or they're deep in the transition into parenthood, or some type of transition in life that includes also parenting, meaning they're like returning back to work or changing careers, or their own kid is like, or one of them maybe is going into school. So life changes are happening in and around them as well, and that's a contributing factor. Um, but what I find happens quite a lot actually is that the labor, the work, the tasks that happen every day start to disappear from kind of consciousness, meaning it's maybe they're used to doing them by now, or it's just part of the day to day. It could be a monotonous task, and it's just something that kind of happens, or they do um, throughout their day that is just kind of like the wallpaper. It's just there. And because it has that regularity, the task has a regularity or a component of something that happens often. Moms that I talk with, anyways, often stop recognizing it as something that they are doing and are only able to see that the things that are literally written down are the things that they're not getting to, or that they're only able to do a couple of the things on that list. So that feels like inadequate. What becomes even more challenging when people are experiencing this, when moms are experiencing this feeling that they are not doing enough, um, that they're not accomplishing things on their to do list, is a, a pressure that comes from within and comes from society, potentially from other family members, that they are supposed to be doing a certain amount of work around the house or with the kids, or that it's assumed that they're going to be taking care of stuff. And since there's an assumption that things will be taken care of, they start to assume that they should also be taking care of it. Like it's an expectation, whether spoken or unspoken, but that expectation comes with pressure. Um, and it does not account for the mental, emotional state of the mom. It doesn't account for other contextual life um, things like schedule changes or life transitions, or the added stress of change. It's just like as if, again, the pressure, internal and external, as if um, mom is supposed to just be able to do all of the things since that's what everybody's used to. Everyone might be used to her taking care of a lot of stuff, and be able to do that under all circumstances, which is nearly, let me go back there, which is just unrealistic and sort of cruel, in my opinion. So, if you have your own internal sense of pressure, that your to do list is long and there's a lot to do, you wake up in the morning, you think to yourself, okay, I'm gonna get, these 5 things done today. And maybe with the best of intentions, you think that that's actually possible, that you can get your 5 of the tasks on your to-do list done. Um, and you might even be able to convince yourself that it literally fits in your schedule. If you penciled it all out, the amount of time that it would take to do these 5 things could, like, maybe technically fit into a schedule. But what it doesn't account for is an interruption from the toddler, or getting a call from school, having to go, I don't know, pick somebody up who's not feeling well, or having a sick kid at home and needing to attend to them, needing to pick something up at the store that you forgot, whatever it is. Um, and so if your goal for the day was to handle these 5 tasks, um, but in the course of a day, you have multiple interruptions, those tasks keep getting like pushed back or put off. What do you think, like listening to this, what do you think happens to the mental state of the person? Like, let's say if this is your experience, what do you think happens to you when you've set out to do a number of tasks and you keep getting interrupted? You can't get to the tasks. Well, what I see most often is that people become more irritable, agitated, frustrated, sometimes angry, sometimes anxious, sometimes all of the above. And then the internal thought process becomes quite negative, self judgmental. What's wrong with me? Why can't I? Um, I should be able to, handle all of these things. And unfortunately, we haven't really been taught how to have some like flexibility with ourselves. Like we put the pressure on ourselves that we've internalized from outside of us, and any number of other factors, reasons why we might have this pressure. Could be from childhood, it could be just whatever, some something we picked up along the way. But it's typically like that pressure is typically not met with compassion or understanding or context. Like it's not often that I hear an automatic response of, oh, well, of course I wasn't able to get to those five things today because my toddler was sick or not feeling well, or, the dog threw up, or, the school called, and the multiple interruptions that happen throughout the day aren't accounted for. So what's left is just feeling guilty and bad for not attending to all of these things. And I'm not even talking about the added load of feeling depressed, feeling anxious, dealing with the real symptoms and impacts of having depression and anxiety or trauma that, in and of itself, will interrupt a process, will interrupt a task, where somebody could feel internally so overwhelmed by starting a new task that it just, they can't get it going, and kind of stuck in a thought process of anxiety or depression or trauma, or if there's underlying ADHD or anything like that, where the thought process gets overloaded, overwhelmed. Your emotional state might become so overwhelming that it's hard to make decisions. Like you could have very well written out a great plan on how to get through the day, but when you look at your list, you could feel stuck on what to do next in order to get to the next task, or how to even start the next task. The real impact of our mental health, our state of mind, our state of being has to be accounted for. And there has to be space in our understanding of ourselves, and that for that to be added into the context of our why it's hard to do things, why we quote unquote can't get tasks done. If we don't add in that compassionate, reflective part of our process, then we'll just perpetually be in a state of self-judgment and self-harm, really, when it comes down to it. So I don't know what that looks like or feels like for you, but I think it's worthwhile to reflect. If you are somebody who tends to be hard on yourself, tends to look negatively at your own process, like, why can't I get things done? I should be able to do more. Those types of thought patterns, then listen for that voice. Listen for that tone with yourself. It it typically is going to feel bad. You're not going to feel supported by you. And honestly, I mean, I say this a lot, but if anybody said to you what you're saying to yourself, you'd probably be pissed at them, or at least think like, oh my gosh, that stings, or like they're being mean, or they're being harsh with me. But when we say it to ourselves and we're in our own head, we're in our own thought process, it gets really slippery, and it can start to kind of spin out and get away from us. And before you know it, you're just feeling terrible. You're feeling horrible. You might not even have been able to track how that happened, like why you are feeling so bad. But this could be one of the contributing factors, is the pressure that you're putting on yourself to get tasks done, to get your to-do list done, not remembering the context of your life, of the maybe many interruptions you have throughout the day, or your just sheer exhaustion from dealing with anxiety or depression, or the massive factor I haven't even brought up yet is sleep deprivation. Let's just, that should have been first. If you're not sleeping, getting tasks done is so much harder. And like your brain and body just are not functioning really well if you don't have sleep on board. Then you add in stress, then you add in life change, and then you add in mental health condition and any number of things that could be getting in the way of you just doing what feels like should be, quote unquote, big with the should, kind of basic stuff or tasks or everyday things. So I'd encourage you, if you are somebody, right, especially right now, if you are in the transition into parenthood, or in the process towards parenthood, you could really be anywhere along the line of, trying to conceive through postpartum, and dealing with a mental health burden, challenge, diagnoses. And you tend to be hard on yourself, to take a moment and reflect. Walk through your day and think of all of the things that you actually do. It could be small. It could just be part of that, like you need to eat, a couple times a day, and that takes time. So if you go through your day and list out everything you can possibly think of, um, and if you want to, even the amount of time it takes, that might be too much work, but if you want to, go ahead. And you start to string it together, you can see that your day fills up with quite a few things. Um, and what I will add in for you is that there ideally is also time on that list for you to rest, for you to sit down if sitting is what you need to do, for you to go on a walk if that's what you need to do, like your fundamental self care. Ideally is on that list too, but you know, if you've been listening for a minute, that self care stuff and the things that you do for yourself often get put last on the list or fall off the list altogether. But I'm going to put that on your list. So that's part of the like requirement for us as humans to have some downtime. We have varying levels of need on that. Some people might need 5 minutes. Some people might need 5 hours, and all of it is okay. Um, but it should be ideally, should be part of the context of your day as well. You do not have to be productive 100% of the time. As a matter of fact, don't be. If you need permission to not be productive and doing something every minute of the day, this is it. I'm giving you permission. Just don't. I could go off about how society has shaped us to feel like we always need to be productive. Um, but productive meaning doing something on the list. But rest is productive. If you want to put it in those terms, rest is productive. It is something that's needed in order for you to have anything that's sustainable in your life. Rest and sleep, and eating and fluids, and those kinds of things are absolutely needed. If you want to keep your engine running, that's what is needed. So take inventory in your day. Think through all of the things you did so that you can have some context as to maybe why you can't, quote unquote, do the things that are on your to-do list. We absolutely have to add in context. It's necessary. Otherwise, we're just gaslighting ourselves. We're saying, "Oh, I didn't do anything today." That's absolutely not true. You didn't do anything? Hmm. I, I doubt that is true. But hey, if your goal for the day was to do nothing and to just lay around and you were able to do that, then that's an accomplishment. You did do something. So I'm hoping that you out there, if you needed to hear this, you can, and you need sort of that permission, if you will, to take it easier on yourself, to reduce the pressure on yourself, to even reduce the things that are on your list to do, and adding in rest, adding in recovery, adding in time where you need to do your basic fundamental self-care. um, here's that permission. Like, no, unfortunately, nobody's really going to step in here for you to do this. I mean, maybe they will if you have really supportive family or friends or partners, something like that. But they're also not going to do it all of the time. So, part of our healing, part of our recovery, and what I hope for you is that you're able to learn to do that for yourself. It's not only good for you, but if you're raising kids, it's also a good example for them. So, I thank you so much for being with me today on another episode of Behind the Sessions. If this has been helpful for you in any way, or you know somebody who needs to hear this particular message, please do send it along to them. It is really, really important that we hear and reflect on ways that we can treat ourselves better. So, thank you so much for being with me. Until next time.